Well, good evening, or good afternoon, everyone. Good to have you here. This is the City of Sioux Falls City Council, Minnehaha County Commission joint meeting. Today is Monday, August 15th. We're certainly pleased to have all of you here. We'll start off tonight's meeting with roll call of City Council and the Minnehaha County Commission.
Council members Aguilar.
Here.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Intamin.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Jameson. Karski.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
There are 7 city councilors present and 1 absent.
Call the Minnehaha County Commission to order.
Thank you very much. We'll start today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. If you could all stand, we'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you. We'd like to start with the regular agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, or are there any motions?
Move approval, Aguilar. Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve today's regular agenda, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any discussion or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Intamin.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0 on City Council. Okay, very good. Item number 1, please.
A resolution approving the joint cooperative agreement establishing the duties and responsibilities for municipal elections between Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls.
Mayor and Council, Deborah Owen, City Clerk for Council Operations. Before you is a contract that has been worked through with the county at the request of the county, and the city has been in agreement on it. There are some changes to some of the duties in sections 1 and 2. There are some duties that the clerk's office has been undertaken for some time, but will be officially assigned to the clerk's office, such as arranging for polling places, order ballots, and provide for the ballot layout, provide official ballot stamps for precincts and absentee precinct, provide workers to the county to deliver ballot boxes, voting booths, and auto marks, and to distribute the election results to the media and the public via paper, internet, and telephone. In addition, there were some added duties to the county, some of which were done in the past but were not in the agreement, such as providing for a poll book and the automark test folders, and coordinate delivery of election ballot boxes, voting booths, and automarks. Section 6 adds a provision for the city to reimburse the county for additional costs when they are incurred by the county. Section 7 adds a provision that the city will need to approve such additional costs before they are incurred to the city. And then sections 9 through 16 are primarily language that the city attorney's office puts into all contracts, and so those are pretty straightforward. However, there are a few requests by the county to make amendments to sections 7, 9, and 11, and I put the city attorney's notes in there for you. Section 7 would add the term clerk when it says the auditor shall provide the city clerk of Sioux Falls estimated costs. And in addition, in that last sentence, it would also add the word clerk after city, where it would say the county shall notify the city clerk in writing of the excess costs prior to any services being done. In Section 9, there would be a sentence added after the first sentence, which would state, if non-appropriation occurs, the city clerk will notify the county auditor prior to the performance of any services under this agreement. And in Section 11, it would be changed to read this way. Each party agreed to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the other from all claims or liabilities arising from or in any way related to the negligence or intentional acts of any employee or agent of that party. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you. Council or County Commission, any comments or motions?
Mayor?
Yes. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
I just wanted to ask a question, if
Please.
possible, of Bob Litz.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I just
For
wanted
the
to make
record,
su-
Bob Litz with the Auditor's Office.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that these revisions are okay with you also.
Yes, they
since they
certainly
started
are.
with you?
Part of my job when I arrived at the auditor's office was to go through quite a few of the old agreements, and I've got a lot more to go. And this one here was older than some of my kids, and so some of the things are no longer in practice. We didn't have some of the machinery that were there anymore, and things had just changed. And I felt with this election looming that it was important that we had it solidified.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yes, Deborah did quite a good job, and we've got some more work to do on other parts of elections, but they're okay for the time being, and I would hope that this work gets passed today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions or comments or motions?
Move for approval?
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by County Commissioner Cindy Heiberger.
No.
Actually, I believe that's out of order.
Second.
There would be a motion by Commissioner Heiberger to actually adopt it for the county. I think you need a second for the city.
Second on the part of the city, Erpenbach.
Sorry.
Commissioner Heiberger, would you mind making a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve for the county.
And Councilor Anderson Jr., would you make a motion to second?
No.
No?
Erpenbach did.
Yes, I guess Cindy made a motion on the part of the county, and Gerald.
Well, happy to second it.
There has been a motion to approve this item, and it was seconded. Don't know by who, but there has been. Is there any further discussion? Very good. Roll call vote by the City Council, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Intiman.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Ralphie.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0.
All right, and then we have a motion and a second on the part of Minnehaha County, and so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Item
you.
2.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to the Homeless Advisory Board.
Good evening, Stacy Teason. Before you, you have a resolution appointing 2 new people to the Homeless Advisory Board. Vernon Brown, who has been an excellent member of the board for the last 6 years, has his term has expired, and so we need to replace him. And Michelle Erpenbach, City Councilor, has stepped forward and offered to take that responsibility on. The Homeless Advisory Board has specific requirements of who can be on the board, and so a city councilor representative is required. A school district representative is also required. Wendy Giebink's position was reassigned, and so Tracy Jensen is the new person stepping up for that. So if there's any questions, those are the 2 that we are replacing. And I just would like to say thank you to the people who have served on the Homeless Advisory Board, especially Vernon Brown, Wendy Giebink, and then, of course, Tam Baker. Her position expired in August as well, and we're looking for a replacement for her. And we'll probably be back in September then for that. But are there any questions? Yeah, thank you.
Move to approve on the city side?
Second, Anderson.
There's been a motion to approve on the City Council side by Councilor Brown, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. If we have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Intiman.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Ralphie.
Yes.
That's passed 7-0.
Is there a motion by anybody on the county side?
Move for approval, Vanninger.
Thank you. Is there a
Second by Heiberger.
All right, there's a motion and a second for further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 3.
Joint budget hearing for Siouxland Heritage Museums.
Good afternoon. Bill Hoskins, Director of the Siouxland Heritage Museums. Happy to be here today. The Siouxland Heritage Museums were formed in 1974 through a joint cooperative agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. And we operate 2 buildings, the old Courthouse Museum and the Pettigrew Homan Museum. Both buildings are on the National Register of Historic Places. In 1974, that joint cooperative agreement lays out 2 different items related to budget. One is that the museum board shall prepare and recommend an annual budget to the city and the county, and that each year in a joint budget hearing, the city and county determine those budgets. Our funding, we actually have 5 different budgets that we deal with. One is our museum operations budget. The second is the old courthouse maintenance budget, which, a third is the Pettigrew Home and Museum maintenance budget. The fourth is the Museum Special Enterprise Fund budget, and then the museum store budget. The museum operations budget is a budget that is funded 50% by the City of Sioux Falls and 50% by Minnehaha County. The funds are administered by Minnehaha County, so all the employees are county employees as a consequence of that. It pays for human resources and operational expenses associated with display, program development, and operational costs. And the annual budget's determined in this joint budget hearing. Here is the budget history for our operations budget. As you look at it, it's really divided into our human resource expenses and our operational expenses, and you can see what's been going on over the last 10 years in that budget. Principally in 2012, we're looking at changes in the operations budget in the areas of human resources, advertising, exhibit supplies and material, education supplies, collection supplies, travel and training. Principally, human resources is one of the largest areas where we've got change in our budget. We have reduced the number of full-time positions. Basically, we've been consolidating some of our positions. Probably will be a little bit more efficient than we have been in the past. The county pay matrix is experiencing a 5% rollback in salaries for all county employees. Our part-time labor costs have also been reduced substantially, and as a result, we have a substantial reduction in our human resource costs. The old courthouse museum maintenance budget, which is something determined, funded completely by Minnehaha County and determined by the county commission, pays for the electricity, repairs, water, sewer, and so on for the old courthouse museum. And briefly, the budget history for the old courthouse museum maintenance. We've got some major challenges in both our historic buildings. The old courthouse is 120 years old. We plan pretty carefully for annual maintenance, but literally we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with some of the systems. Things happen. So in both budgets, and as we move into the Pettigrew budget, it also has some contingency funds placed for those unexpected. Some of our major projects coming up, we have sprinkler heads at the old courthouse that need replacement. A number of light fixtures are being changed over to more efficient fluorescent bulbs. Just basic mechanical upkeep of the building, tuck pointing, and so on. And the budget of $58,000 is what has been adopted at this point in the county's provisional budget. The Pettigrew Home and Museum is owned by the City of Sioux Falls. The city finances its maintenance budget. That's determined exclusively by the City Council. And it, like the old courthouse, pays for the utilities and the general maintenance of that structure. Here's a brief history of that budget and where it has been over the last few years. Probably the number one challenge with the Pettigrew maintenance budget are natural gas prices, because they've fluctuated in that small building as much as $3,000 over the last few years. And again, the biggest challenge is the house portion of the building is over 120 years old. And although it has had major upkeep and maintenance over the last 30 years, there are many unpredictable things that come along every year. Our primary projects that we're looking at next year is a continuation of a project working with replacement of our storm windows. Another is some repairs to the front porch and its railing and other general miscellaneous repairs. And the budget we proposed is $29,350. The Museum Special Enterprise Fund is becoming a very important budget that was established in a joint resolution by the city and the county. It receives and accounts for expenses associated with rental of space in the museum system, sponsorships, and in the provision of programs, events, services for which a fee is charged. The fund is administered by Minnehaha County, but the budget is determined in this joint budget hearing. The enterprise fund goes up and down quite a bit. And when we had the annual report in April, if you remember, I mentioned that we had some major changes that happened in 2010. And in that, revenue from the museum's endowment is now going in through the enterprise fund. And that has helped raise the amount of, well, the size of the annual budget. Where it at one time was directed through a grants account that's been eliminated anyway. The sources of revenue are donations, sponsorships, rentals, education services for which a fee is charged, the museum's endowment, all go into the enterprise fund. Because of some of the sources of the money passing in there, about 60% of the fund balance, which at this time is about $110,000, is obligated. In other words, it came in as a sponsorship for our concert series. It came in as a sponsorship for an exhibition we're doing. Our proposed budget for the enterprise fund in 2012 is $166,250. That's about $30,000 larger than it was in 2010 and about the same from 2011. A similar increase from 2011. 2010 and 11 were about the same. The museum store budget accounts for revenues and expenses associated with the store. It's administered by the county, and its budget is also determined in the joint budget hearing. The museum's big goals are customer service. We're there to serve the public. We want to be a resource for them and for both the public and government, and always make the museum system as efficient as we can. The budgets we're asking you to adopt this evening would be an operations budget of $916,344. That is, making sure the numbers have changed a little. I'm sorry. It should be $888,810, and that would be $44,405 would be the 50% from the city and the county. Sorry, I didn't catch that. We discovered a credit of $30,000 that hadn't been included in the provisional budget, and so that lowered that amount. But it should be $44,405. So for the commissioners, this is actually less than your adopted budget. And then the enterprise fund budget would be $166,250, and the museum store $34,028. I'd be happy to answer questions. I was trying to move through it quickly.
Thanks, Bill. County Commissioners or City Councilors, any questions for Mr. Hoskins? Yes, Councilor Mott.
Thanks, Bill. I know that you have folks here that are with you to support your efforts. Would you introduce them, please, and then I do have a question.
Absolutely. I've got a wonderful board of 11 people, and I have a number of them here tonight. Glenda Schmidt, Diane Metley, and Sandy Dean, as well as Commissioner Benega and Councilmember Erpenbach are on the museum's board.
Good, thank you. Then if I might also ask a question, Bill, would you Would you talk to us a little bit about the changes in your budget just in 2011 since this group met in this budget hearing before? Can you kind of quantify that a little bit for us?
Sure. Our 2011 budget was $1,166 in the in 2011. That was the adopted budget. This budget is a little over $200,000 less, and primarily that's happening in human resources. We have eliminated 2 full-time positions, consolidated those responsibilities, and it's been part of the process. Also, we have a 5% reduction in the base of the county pay matrix, and that has also resulted in some salary savings for us and some reduction in our part-time staff. We have also reduced some, and really we've tried what we're really doing is looking at how to move some of our expenses into a revenue fund, the enterprise fund. And I think we can be fairly successful in doing that over time. It's been something, this isn't the first year that we've been trying to do that. About 10 years ago, the operational expenses in the operations budget were about $164,000. In this budget, they'll be about $76,000. Conversely, the enterprise fund budget has grown from about $70,000 to about $166,000. So we're moving some of those expenses into an enterprise fund-based budget.
Then if I might, one more question, Mayor, and it's maybe not as much for Bill as just for the group. When we're looking at numbers that are different, I mean, our budget numbers in our big fat book are different now than what the county is presenting to us. How do we do that to people who have done this before? Can you help us with that?
Well, and the processes of the two governments are different and not always in sync. We usually start off getting the budget prepared for the city about 2 months before we prepare it for the county. The county commission begins budget hearings in June, usually the first week in June, and this year it's been a challenging year for the county. And unfortunately, I really don't know what my human resources situation is going to be until they adopt their provisional budget, is when I have a reasonably good idea. And as a consequence of once we got the provisional adopted and sat down with the auditor's office and looked at some things, I didn't get my numbers until about Tuesday of last week. And so I was trying to get things to you as quickly as possible for this presentation. I think in this situation, the numbers that I presented to you are substantially lower than what was presented to the mayor in April. And so if everybody's agreeable, I think that's where we go.
Any other questions of Ms. Roskins? Very good. This is a budget hearing. Did we want to proceed with adopting this tonight, or did you want to have further discussion, council or county commission? Yes, Commissioner Bennigan.
I'd like to make just a couple of comments about the timing issue, and the timing issue is substantial, obviously, is that, as Bill's already explained, you've seen numbers from way back when, but frankly in 2011, I'm sorry, our revenue numbers are substantially less than the projected numbers that we were going to look at. So we made a 3% reduction in that particular budget. We're looking at 2012 as even less revenue than we've experienced in the past. We chose not to opt out of the budget. By not opting out, we had to reduce the budget by 7.5%, and we will not adopt this budget until September of this year. We have a provisional budget in front of you. If there's a need, which it sounds like I'm thinking that there is, for you to see more accurate numbers than the two different sheets that we have, I think it's important that, frankly, we delay this and take another peek at it either later on this summer or prior to the September meeting when we have to adopt that budget also.
Any further questions or comments? Councilor Ermbach?
Just thinking out loud a little bit. I mean, you've talked about, and we've all watched, with heavy hearts, the things that are going on with the county commission and with your budgeting process. But as you have cut 3% here and 5% out of the HR matrix and another 7% for 2012, this budget, the Siouxland Heritage Museum's budget, is a pretty small budget. It's, not quite $1 million, but overall, the hit that this particular budget has taken, because we have to compound it with our 50-50 agreement, is dramatic. It's not 3%, it's not 5%, it's not 7%. It's a huge number. And it's not fair to this small budget, and it's not fair to those buildings that we've been charged with caring for. I'm not saying that I'm going to make a change to that, but I think we have to think pretty seriously when we're looking at, you're saying it's 3% or 7 or whatever, because it gets compounded when we go 50-50 on this deal. So it's a huge cut for this small organization, and I just would take that into account as we think about this.
So, Councilor Brock, you weren't questioning the percentages that were outlined. You're just adding some.
No, I'm just saying that because it's a 50-50 agreement,
Very
we
good.
have to agree 50-50.
Yes.
Those numbers get compounded.
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Menninger.
I need to clarify just to make sure that people understand that the total was approximately 7.5%. You're not adding the 3, the 5, and the 7.5. And I understand your concerns about heavy hearts. We had heavy hearts going through this, but heavy hearts doesn't help us pay the bills. And unfortunately, the 50-50 agreement that you talked about is in place. If you choose to do more than that from a city standpoint, you certainly can, because we've had the city attorney already look, or our county attorney already look at the agreement. But frankly, our ability to do more than what we've already done, in the fact that we've also had to, as it's been said 3 or 4 times, we've had to reduce personnel incomes by about 5%. There actually will be some step increases, so it's not completely 5%. But this is an extremely tough year, and unfortunately, we can't do anything more than what we've already done.
Council or county commissioners, any further comments, questions, motions?
Just a point of order then, I guess.
Councilor Mott.
Again, inexperienced. Do we normally pass these budgets tonight? I believe that we do.
Yeah, we do. Yes.
We can certainly do that tonight. I'm just waiting for a motion. And if,
On the part of the city, I move that we approve the budget.
is there a second?
Second, Anderson.
There has been a motion by Councilor Entenmann, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. on behalf of the City of Sioux Falls to approve the budget as submitted by Mr. Hoskins.
Question then?
Yes, Councilor Buck.
Which budget? Are we approving the budget that's presented to us as the mayor's proposal? Are we I'm asking council members.
Councilor Entenmann.
I believe the budget that they talked about was the one for $888,000.
Yes.
That's
So we're going to amend the mayor's proposal then? Okay.
There has been a motion by Councilor Entenmann, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. to approve the budget as presented by Mr. Hoskins. Is there any further questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Intiman.
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfe.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0.
The county will entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Benninga.
Second, Heiberger.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Item 4.
Joint budget hearing for Siouxland Libraries.
Good evening. Jody Fick, past interim director for Siouxland Libraries, now assistant director. Before I start, I want to do a quick introduction. Tonight we have Mary Johns, who is the director of Siouxland Libraries, here in the audience. And Mary comes to us from Illinois.
Thanks, Jody. I would just like to say good evening and thank you all very much. I am so pumped to be here. I've been here for a week and experiencing a lot of what I think is a lot of Sioux Falls, but clearly there's a whole lot more for me to learn. And I have to say that Jody thinks her job is done, but she has a whole lot of training to do. And I intend to rely on her, excuse me, a great deal. But she's certainly done a great job, and I'm really excited about the opportunities here in Sioux Falls. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome. Jody, thank you for that introduction.
And I don't have a really long presentation tonight. I did a longer presentation to both the commission back in June when we did our hearing, and a couple of weeks ago to the council with more details on the budget. The Siouxland Libraries is operated by a joint agreement between the city and the county that was entered into in 1995, and it merged the Sioux Falls Public Library System and the Minnehaha County Rural Public Library System into one large, successful library. We have 4 locations in Sioux Falls and 8 locations in Minnehaha County, and this year we are also operating our new children's bookmobile, which has been very well received. The budget request, I've given you a copy of the mayor's proposed recommended budget, and it's actually within the budget book is pages 59 through 65. The request for this year is for $5,892,773 for operating and $620,000 for capital, for a total budget request from the city of $6,512,773. And for the county's obligation, I have a second, the very last page in your handouts is our Minnehaha County budget request, and that is a request for $920,000, which isn't actually a decrease from last year. Last year, in addition to our regular funding, we had bank franchise funds that we used for some extra capital projects. We no longer have those funds. In the county, the library is funded by a specific property tax mill levy that can only be used for library, so all of our funding comes out of that specific tax. We will be within that funding and still have enough in reserve with that request. So, are there any questions on the library budget request?
City Council or County Commission, any questions of Jody? Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
Move approval from city side.
Second, Karski.
It's been a motion by Councilor Rolfing to approve the budget on behalf of the city, seconded by Councilor Karski. Are there any questions or comments on behalf of the City Council? Councilor Erpenbach?
Question about staffing, again, new in this process. I know that this split is not 50-50 directly.
Correct. The split is not 50-50, and it is actually based on percentage of use of the library system. So each year we adjust what it is based on how much the city residents are using the library and the county residents are using the library.
Then Jody, can you tell us those folks that work in the, what I would call the sort of the out-county libraries, the Baltics and those places, are those folks also then considered city employees because we control your
Yes,
administrative staff?
all of the employees are City of Sioux Falls employees, not
Great.
county employees.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions or comments by the City Council, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0.
Make a motion to approve the library budget for 2012.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Benninga.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.
Joint budget hearing for Metro Communications.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Brown.
my employer, SDN Communications, is a vendor to Metro Communications, so I need to excuse myself.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Darren Ketchum. I'm the Director of Metro Communications. I just want to say it's a privilege to be here this evening. I've been around here for since 2008, and as luck would have it, this is actually my first time presenting this budget to the joint body. Over the course of the last few years, military obligations have taken me away to different parts of the United States and different parts of the world. So I just I'd like to thank you for the support that you've shown, not only me, but the entire agency over the course of the last few years, especially while I was away in Afghanistan. So I thank you for that. Before I get into the presentation, I've just got five slides for you, and I'll be brief. I'd like to recognize two individuals from my staff that are here this evening. That really these two individuals are the ones that put this together and make sure that when we set these targets and the budgets that we're coming in, below the budgeted amount or at the budgeted amount, and not overspending, and meeting the objectives of both the commission and the council. Those two individuals are Anna Raker, my business manager, and Jennifer Disberg, my operations manager. Going forward, all right, you can see the preserving the lifeline. That's really what we do at 911. We take the calls from the citizens and the visitors, businesses, and we take the information they provide to us and ensure that the police officers and firemen and animal control, the pertinent party, has it. You can see the population that we serve as all of Sioux Falls, to include the portion in Lincoln County, and then all of Minnehaha County. Approximately 190,000 citizens. We all know that there's a lot more visitors and different individuals that are in our community every day, and we're proud to serve those visitors as well. On an annual basis, we're answering over 300,000 calls. That's 911 calls, administrative calls, transferring a call to the highway patrol. Different telephone contacts we have are over 300,000 a year. Obviously, we serve a variety of agencies, law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire department, emergency management, animal control. Getting into the budget, we all have a part to play in controlling expenses within government, and I believe that our team's put together a pretty solid proposal. The bottom line is we are asking for zero increase from the city and the county in 2012. We'll be able to do that through a variety of ways, through extending the useful life of some of our equipment, holding back other purchases, reducing training costs, and providing more in-house services to our staff and to some of the residents. One thing you'll notice that obviously sticks out in 2012 is the estimated revenue that we're projecting for the E911 surcharge income. We've reduced that in comparison to previous years based on actual receipts in the first two quarters of 2011. Unfortunately, I can't in good conscience bring you a budget that has a 3% increase that you may have seen in years past based on what we're seeing these first two quarters of this year. So we take that into account, and really that's about a $89,000 roughly between the different years. Personnel expense, We're going to reduce our personnel expense by 0.6% in 2012 in comparison to 2011. We're going to do that through really two main ways. One is a reorganization of the management portion of the agency. These are the individuals that are doing the reports for the different agencies that we serve. They take care of the training. They're doing the quality assurance to make sure that we're meeting, the identified standards, in emergency medical dispatch, and then standards that we impose on ourselves to maintain that high level of service. In that reorganization, what I propose to do is I'm going to eliminate one FTE effective in October to begin that process, and that FTE will be a senior office assistant. The position, obviously, it's a hard decision. We're going to take and lay somebody off, but I feel that out of all the options we have, this is the most viable option in order to, long-term sustainability of the 911 system. We're able to shift some of those responsibilities to other members of the management staff without impacting the operational capability of the center and the quality of service that you all receive as a 911 center. The other is through, when you approve the number of FTEs that we have in the agency, you approve 37 operating staff, but you give me enough money for 38. And we do that, the 38th FTE, we call it overhire. And basically what that allows us to do is more aggressively manage turnover. We have a turnover industry average of almost 20%. We've had, 10% roughly over the last few years. So we're doing a little bit better than what the industry does. But basically, if somebody were to leave, rather than try to hold a training course for one person, what that overhire capability does is allows me to go above my authorized FTE by 2 individuals, knowing that I have funding for 6 months for each of them. And basically what we're doing is, we know with turnover the way it is, we're forecasting that an individual may leave, and then we can get them in the training pipeline, because the training itself takes about 6 months. So that's the tool we use. And what I'm proposing to do is keep that money in place, and then we currently have a vacancy in the operations of the center. I propose to leave that vacancy open and operate with 37 staff instead of the 37 plus the overhire. Right now, you're seeing we're down 3 people right now. We have 3 people in training. So we can operate with 34 people. We don't like to do it for a sustained, period of time. So, this recommendation I'm proposing to you, obviously, is going to do so with the least amount of operational impact to not only the citizens and visitors and businesses of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, but to the police officers that and firemen that we've come to know and work with every day. So. Those are the highlights. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to is the budgeted use of reserves. We have $81,000 listed there in 2012. In 2011, you authorized $132,000. In anticipation of seeking 0% growth in the city-county contribution this year, we've done some holdbacks in our operating budget, and we know we're going to save some money because we're aggressively managing overtime, and that'll come in a little bit less than what you authorized us. So through those different holdbacks, I'm able to save about $80,000 in 2011. And that's why I request in 2012 that you authorize me to use, that $81,000 of reserve funds. Our major sources of revenue, E911 surcharge revenue, that's the, if you have a cell phone bill or a landline at your home, you're paying 75 cents a month on that line. That's what that revenue is generated from. We receive that for all of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. That surcharge is volatile like any revenue source. As the economy experiences slumps, we experience slumps. As it increases, we see increases. So it's much like you might see sales tax or other tax revenue sources. One thing, kind of a bright spot that I see with this revenue source is, I know through the hard work of the State 911 Coordination Board, which I believe Chief Barthel and Director Turbach are both members of, are working to identify what the true costs of 911 in South Dakota, what they are. You know, in 2009, what the board has come to find out is it would have cost a surcharge of $1.54 to 100% fund 911 in South Dakota. The board has some unanswered questions that they are going to go back and answer, and one of them is truly the intent of the surcharge. Is it intended to cover 100% of the cost of operating a 911 center? You know, if you ask me, you know, I'm obviously partial, and I believe many of you are as well, that we'd like to see this dedicated funding source increase to cover the complete operational costs of a center and to maintain a working capital program. So, you know, we've got our work cut out for us, but I think we've got a good group of people that are willing to go out to peer and meet with our legislators, and I think it's going to take some action on each of your parts as we move forward and try to look for some legislative solutions. And next year, in 2012, and if we don't get it done in 2012, you know, we've dealt with the legislature before. Things often take a number of years to get, you know, the right product that we can get passed through both houses and the governor to sign. The big portion of our budget, we have a relatively small operating budget in comparison to some, you know, other local government, state government operations. Our big thing is people. We operate, you know, like I said, operationally with 37 staff members working we have 3 segregated shifts, and we maintain minimum staffing levels based on the number of calls for service and 911 calls that we receive during those periods. So, which I don't have any concerns about meeting those standards, even, you know, during periods, you know, severe storms and whatnot, where we see a surge in calls. Maybe instead of 900 calls in a day, maybe in 2 hours we're going to get 600 calls. That takes its toll on a system, but we've got procedures in place to manage that, and I'm comfortable and confident in the staff that carry out those functions. Overtime, obviously, you know, over the course of the last few years, this is something that, you know, it's a small portion of our budget, but I feel it's very important that we keep in check. Through aggressive management of overtime and changing of some different personnel policies, we've been able to do a really good job of managing overtime. Overtime typically accounts for about 6% of our actual expenses in comparison to personnel costs. In 2007, you see obviously they were way higher. You know, roughly 14%. In 2011, I really believe that we're going to come in at 5.9%, 6%. In 2012, what I budgeted was 6.3%, just to provide an additional cushion that we, as a planning factor, we use every year. Well, that's my last slide. I'd gladly answer any questions you have, and certainly extend an offer to all of you to at your pleasure, certainly stop into the 911 center and meet our staff and see how they operate every day.
Councilor Karski.
Yes, my question's regarding staff. Quick question for you. What is your average full-time equivalent salary for your operations people?
A brand new employee, when we factor in what they will, the 2,080 hours worked, plus the overtime that we anticipate each staff member will work, plus benefits and retirement, is approximately $51,000.
Okay. Speak to me about the thought process that you use, the wisdom, the logic, whatever. Help me think this through with you. Why are we doing anticipatory funding for full-time employees instead of using more overtime? Why is one better than the other in your...
Let me just make sure I understand. So why are we using overhire authority rather than just paying additional overtime?
Correct.
You know, I feel we get a better balance out of our staff. We don't ask nearly as much out of those individuals if we're aggressive with bringing additional employees on board in anticipation of filling vacancies. You know, with the type of work that they do, and, you know, they're already all expected basically to work, you know, over 100 hours of overtime a year. I just simply put, I don't want to burn them out. If I were to add another 100 hours to each individual, you know, that would be very excessive. But, you know, even if it was 20 to 30, it's hard enough for them to schedule vacations. We are staffed I would say, at the very lowest level possible at this point.
And I very much appreciate the work your people do, and I could understand where, burnout could be a hazard in that occupation, and probably the high reason for the high turnover. But I guess I still look at it, and I think that overtime is a better. You say 6 months to train a person, but you could go a year maybe without needing those extra 1 or 2 people, and is that really crimping your budget and your ability to perform?
Well, speaking from previous experience, we've been able to, we've never gotten to the point where that individual, once they're in the pipeline, say on an overhire basis, we've never gotten to the point where we've spent all the overhire money and had to lay them off because we're over our authorized budget or FTE. With turnover, at the pace that it's at, we really even out quite well.
Councilor Inneman.
Just several comments here, Darren. With the staffing plan that you have, eliminating an FTE right now, basically in the office, and with what you have planned, the overhires, what you really said to us, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the public, whether it's those of us that have to call 911 or the calls that go in to the officers or to the medical folks or whatever, you will not see a reduction in service, correct?
Absolutely correct.
The one other thing I would like you to explain, please, the funding that you get from the city and county, the percentage-wise, can you tell us what that is, please?
Yes. After our 911 surcharge revenue, obviously that's only enough to cover approximately 60% of the budget. So that remaining 40% of the budget, which is 1.3, 1.4 million approximately, is covered by the city and the county. They contribute a share. The city 75% and the county 25%.
Great, good. Can you then E911 surcharge too? Basically, the only way that the state or we have to audit that is based on landlines. Is that correct? That's the only auditing we can really do. There's no audit per se, or the fee set on cell phone service.
Not necessarily. Where the issue comes in with the ability to audit, the providers, a cell phone company, I won't name a cell phone company, but a cell phone company, they remit on a quarterly basis to us. They say we had X number of lines. The cell phone companies do it just like a landline company. The issue with the auditing is simple. We don't have to my knowledge, a legal mechanism for the audit or the physical capacity to perform an audit. At the local level and at the state level, it hasn't, I don't believe, made it. I know there's been it's been a topic certainly of the 911 board, but it hasn't made it much past that, to my knowledge.
I might just add that sitting in on the Metro Communications Board, that the budget that was presented by Darren, I think, was very much acceptable to Councilor Jameson, to the mayor, and myself, if I might speak for you, Mr. Mayor, and the commissioners that serve on there. The only thing that we put up, it is a bare bones budget. We believe that they have cut to the max. We don't believe that there's any more room. And as we look forward into the future, one big expense item that we have hanging out there, a capital expense item, and you see that we're eating into the reserve budget, and that budget was reserved for capital expenses. What's the intent on it? But we're staring about $1 million phone system in the face. Is that right?
Yes. Right now it's $800,000. It's hard to say what it'll be in 5 years.
So down the road, 3 to 5 years, we are going to be looking at that expense. I personally believe, and I know Councilor Jameson made the same comments, that when it comes to the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens, we can't compromise those. I feel that the budget that was proposed to us and that I will accept is the bare bones budget. And next year, I'm not prepared to take those kinds of cuts.
Councilor Rolfing?
I think I had somewhat of my question answered, and that was on the 911 surcharge. And that, do you know if the state then is going to do any auditing or find some way to look at increasing that funding? I know there's been some bills up there about increasing the funding on that 75 cents up to $1 or $1.50, that kind of thing.
I couldn't speak to the auditing portion of what the state intends to do. I do know that last year there was a bill introduced that did not gain any traction to increase the surcharge. I mean, you're looking at surcharge. Basically, you're asking for a double of would be the sufficient price to
But
serve.
a quarter would mean a lot, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
A quarter
Yep.
or 50 cents would mean a lot, yeah. And I would agree with Councilman Jameson that I know this is bare bones, and next year we need to be prepared if something doesn't happen at the legislature to get that up to par where it needs to be. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Darren, can I ask you to put the slide back showing the 911 surcharge information? I think that's very telling, and I'm really glad that Councilman Intiman as well as Councilman Rolfing brought it up. Do you have the ability to pull that up? Yeah.
There it is.
This one?
Go back a little bit. I don't know what you're looking at, so
that's the only other.
that's
one.
it.
Okay.
If you look at the blue line, that's the 911 surcharges. Amazingly, if you look from 2007 to 2008 and 2009, you see it rather static. The money that we're receiving for our landlines as well as our cellular or track phones has maintained pretty static.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory that we all have to accept is that people aren't getting more cell phones anymore. And when this came up before, I've been on Metro since 2003. When we sent a letter in 2007 asking for cellular phone companies to remit the taxes that have been collected, you can see the difference between 2007 actual and 2008 in that jump. Just in that letter. There was no audit, but more funds were sent after a letter was sent asking them to remit the funds, but no audit was done. Now, if you look at the years since then, they've actually gone down. So if there is an audit that can take place, the question is, are we getting and are we collecting the tax that is being paid by taxpayers for 911? I think the evidence is pretty clear. And so I think that the state, as well as our local metro, should continue to press that issue, because I think if you look at this graph, it's very telling as what the situation is.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
In your budget, what do you have budgeted for training, and who does your training?
In comparison, just in 2011, we had about $15,000 between training and travel, $7,500 apiece. What we've looked at this year is we've knocked that down to $1,000 apiece. So a pretty substantial cut, $13,000 out of a $15,000 pot. I do have an individual on my staff that will take care of the majority of that training, the internal stuff. And that individual is the one that, right now, my 3 new employees, he's the one that's teaching them that. He has a variety of other duties, but training is one of them. Other things we do, in 2011, we were successful in working with the state law enforcement training out in Pierre and some different 911 organizations to secure grant funding. And so that's kind of we haven't secured the funding yet, but that's our plan in 2012, is to go after those funds and work. We've made some pretty good inroads with law enforcement training and work well with them. So we're confident that we can maintain adequate training for our staff.
Okay, and with that then, under other professional services, you have REMSA listed at $51,000, almost $52,000. For that money, what are they doing for Metro Communication?
Well, for that money, what we receive is, for our emergency medical dispatch, we are an accredited center of excellence. There's only 2 in South Dakota, and most of them aren't across the country. So to maintain that certification, we have to have a medical director, access to a medical director, which we do through REMSA. So he's the one that, when we're going through all of our protocols, the questions, if you've ever called 911 and we're asking you questions about the patient, he's the one that is helping develop those questions. In addition, there's another city employee that also helps. But he's the one that signs the bottom line at the end of that, and with his medical license accepts the liability that, yes, this is the standard of care that's acceptable professionally and acceptable locally with our responders.
So we have a separate contract then with REMSA to provide this service? Because now that REMSA's been, since the IRS audit, REMSA's been moved into the city, and those employees are now city employees. So I guess I'm sort of looking at, we've got under REMSA under our under one department, and then we're seeing another line item for them here.
I guess I wouldn't be able to speak in great detail about REMSA. I believe Director Franken could maybe offer some better insight if you have detailed questions about REMSA.
Do we have an answer for that, Joe?
Jill Franken, Health Director. If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're looking at the expense item that's in Metro Communications budget.
Correct.
That becomes then a revenue line in Health's budget. So in our Health budget, then we have a corresponding revenue line where that comes in, and that helps offset the cost of the medical director and QA coordinator that's in Health's budget. So for EMS oversight and quality oversight, that is Metro Communications' share that we have agreed upon as a percentage of their work that goes towards Metro Communications for the EMS oversight.
Okay, thank you.
City Council or County Commissioners, any questions, comments, motions?
I move to approve the budget on the city side, Entenmann.
Is there a second?
Second, Rolfing.
There's been a motion by Councilor Entenmann, second by Councilor Rolfing to approve the budget as presented by Darren. Is there any further discussion on that item? Councilor Urbanbach?
Same question then. Are we moving the presentation that was made to us by the police department, or are we moving the presentation that was made tonight?
Presentation that was made tonight is the budget that we're approving.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Council? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Intiman,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 6-0.
Same motion by the county.
Move for approval of the Metro Communications budget, Benninga.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Heiberger.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
On the agenda, it does state executive session, but don't believe that there's a need for an executive session unless we hear otherwise.
No need for an executive
Very
session.
good. In that case, could I have a motion to adjourn by the City Council?
So move, Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Got a motion to adjourn by Councilor Anderson Jr., seconded by Councilor Entman. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Brown, Intiman,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 6-0.
Same motion entertained by the county? Thank you.
Second, Benninga.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Make it a great night.